From the moment Sonic the Hedgehog first burst onto the scene in 1991, he made an impression. The blue blur, as he is endearingly known among fans, immediately stood out from other contemporary video game characters of the time like Mario, thanks to one main characteristic: his speed. In old platformers of the bygone era, the goal was simply to reach the end of the level while avoiding enemies and hazards along the way. In Sonic, you needed to do all this while also maintaining as much speed as possible in order to finish the level as fast as possible, while collecting rings to increase your score. Also, the music slapped. This speed, along with his design, helped garner him a reputation as a cool character with an even cooler game. Sonic is a couple years older than me, and in this regard he feels like a childhood friend. I grew up with Sonic. My earliest gaming memories are of Sonic, though I was too young and inexperienced at the time to ever hope of finishing one of these games. Finite lives were a thing. I still loved his games and played them over and over. Sonic's style couldn't be emulated anywhere else but in a Sonic game. His first game felt like a prototype, the second was an evolution, the third a masterpiece, albeit a masterpiece that was split in two, and Sonic CD was an enjoyable experiment. Yes, I like Sonic CD.
This guy stinks!
The classic Sonic era was a fantastic time to be alive, a time that the young whippersnappers of today can only look back on and view with mystical awe at what a prime Sonic the Hedgehog looked like. Because today, most people probably know Sonic for the Dark Ages. But I'm not going to talk about the Dark Ages. I'm going to talk about the Adventure era, or more specifically, Sonic Adventure 2. Sonic Adventure 2 was preceded by the first adventure game, which debuted on the Sega Dreamcast in 1998. It was the first true 3D Sonic game, and it received critical acclaim for revolutionizing Sonic's gameplay. The free-moving axis of the 3D realm, along with the physics engine,
Yeah, really putting those physics to work, guys, huh?
meant players had more freedom than ever in choosing how to approach levels, as Sonic's spin dash could allow him to skip huge portions of the maps once you learned how to manipulate his movement. It also received praise for its set pieces, like the whale, and story, which in games at the time was practically unheard of. Sonic and Knuckles 3 had a story previously, though that story was up to the visual interpretation of the player. Adventure 1's story was told directly to the player through cutscenes and voice acting, which made the story easier to digest as nothing was left to interpretation. The story literally happened to you. People also liked the fact you could play multiple characters. Sonic Adventure 1 was a huge success for Sega, or so people thought, and it was a flagship title for the Dreamcast and led sales for the console, so a sequel was all but inevitable. After the launch of Adventure 1 in Japan, Sonic Team split, with Adventure 1's director, Takashi Iizuka, taking a portion of Sonic Team and relocating to San Francisco, California, which was the hometown of Sega America. Naming the team Sonic Team USA, their first task as a studio was to clean up bugs from Adventure 1 and give the game more overall polish for Western audiences. After the release of Sonic and the Dreamcast in the West, the team finally set about work crafting the sequel. The story was a major focusing point for Sonic Team approaching the sequel. After the positive reception of Adventure 1's story, the team wanted to replicate this success by expanding upon and improving the storytelling aspects. One of the first ideas presented was to feature a dark Sonic character to rival the Blue Hedgehog, similar to Metal Sonic. The result was the black and red quill-rocking anti-hero everyone knows and loves as Shadow the Hedgehog. Shadow was different from typical Sonic villains because he had a tragic backstory. See, Sonic had done anti-heroes before with Knuckles, but with Knuckles he was tricked by Dr. Eggman into believing Sonic was the one trying to steal the Master Emerald, when in fact Eggman was the thief. This gives off the impression that Knuckles is a gullible idiot, and there isn't much room for players to sympathize with his situation. I mean, sure, Eggman tricked you, but come on, look at this guy. Does this face scream trustworthy to you? With Shadow it's different. You empathize with Shadow's story. He is a tragic character. When Shadow first appears, he makes an impression, making a fool of Sonic by utilizing his chaos powers to move faster than the Blue Hedgehog. The player is left wondering who this mysterious character is and is compelled to press forward and progress through the game, intrigued to discover more about this seemingly evil character. Adventure 2 has cast its first hook. As the player continues through the game, they uncover more of Shadow's backstory, and you soon realize he isn't this typical bad guy who is evil for the sake of being evil. Shadow is being manipulated as Knuckles was, but whereas Knuckles, who as the guardian of the Master Emerald, should have been inherently suspicious of any trespassers on Angel Island, Shadow does not view himself as a protector or a guardian, and is fully aware that the acts he are being asked to perform are not good acts. But he is too motivated by grief, anguish, and an overwhelming need for revenge to care. But I'll come back to this. Another character introduced was Rouge the Bat, who is a spy and a treasure hunter. She serves almost like a moral compass to Shadow later in the game, but the two are initially untrustworthy of each other, and this is the cause of a lot of infighting amongst the related characters. This results in amusing cutscenes, which again compels the player further in order to see how these relationships will develop. Oh, Eggman's in this game too, by the way. I mentioned this because I've just went off on a tangent about the characters like an idiot. For Adventure 2, Sonic Team decided to drop the adventure feels of the first game, along with other elements, and agreed the game should focus on 3 distinct styles of play from Adventure 1. The shooting range is V102 Gamma, the treasure hunting emerald sequences from Knuckles' playthrough, and of course the Sonic Speed stages. These 3 playstyles are divided between 6 playable characters, which are then split into 2 teams, Hero and Dark. The 3 heroes are, of course, Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles, with Sonic in the speed stages, Knuckles in the hunting stages, and Tails in his tornado plane for the shooting sections. His plane turns into a mech. Don't ask any questions. The aforementioned Shadow, Rouge, and Eggman serve as their respective dark side counterparts. This was another deviation from the original Adventure 1 formula, where in that game it would lock you into the selected character for the whole playthrough. In the sequel, you play as 3 characters for a whole playthrough. The speed stages are about what you'd expect if you previously played Adventure 1. You run through the level at breakneck speeds to reach the goal ring as fast as possible, with set pieces and gimmicks sprinkled throughout for added player engagement. Adventure 2 also added a ranking system to encourage replayability and to motivate players to achieve faster times for those elusive A ranks, which aren't easy to get, by the way. I only got like 4 or 5 of them in my whole run. The shooting stages slow the pace of the speed stages right down, and this is intentionally done to provide the player with some breathing room. Tails and Eggman move a lot slower than the other characters and have a lot more enemies to fight. The goal is, again, to reach the goal ring while chaining together hits on enemies for multipliers which increase your score. The Knuckles and Rouge sections drop you into more compact levels, giving you a radar, and they ask you to find 3 pieces of the Master Emerald in order to complete the level. These pieces spawn in set places, and you use the radar and hints from monitors to find them. The radar serves a kind of hot and cold function, wherein it beeps faster the closer you are to the proximity of the emeralds. These 3 distinct playstyles provide a welcome change of pace to the speed stages and require a more methodical approach to the levels. These playstyles were also added to extend longevity, as an experienced Sonic player can blitz all the speed stages in about 25 minutes, speedrunners excluded. Games at that point in time were generally getting longer in length, so the extra playstyles and campaign were added. Though these other playstyles proved divisive these days, with some people feeling that they break the pacing too much, and while I understand this sentiment, overall I feel they simply provide more content to an already stellar game. The treasure hunting sequences allow the player to chill out and relax, as you don't feel pressure to finish as fast as possible. You can explore the map at your own pace. In the shooting sequences, it can be addicting to rack up as many multipliers as you can, but I feel it's the weaker of the 3 styles. The collision and hit detection is super jank, and the mechs move a bit slower than should be acceptable in a Sonic game. But I'm still glad they're included. Although they still aren't what I'm looking forward to the most whenever I go to boot up the game again. Of course, the speed stages are the meat and potatoes of Adventure 2, everything else is just extra. I play Sonic for Sonic. With everything decided upon, Sonic Team set about crafting another masterpiece and graced the world with its release on the 19th of June 2001. I'm going to give a brief overview of the story and my thoughts on it. Nothing too in-depth, but spoiler warning for this nearly 24-year-old game. Also, I will be going over the stories individually, starting with the hero story. The hero story begins with Sonic escaping from a gun airship, gun being a branch of the government. They captured Sonic because they believe he did something. After escaping, Sonic encounters the mysterious Shadow. Sonic realizes Gun are looking for Shadow and not him, and have mistaken Shadow for he. Shadow escapes and Sonic is recaptured. The scene shifts to Knuckles and Rouge arguing over the Master Emerald, when Eggman appears to steal it. Knuckles shatters the Master Emerald to prevent Eggman from escaping, knowing he can track the pieces down later, and this provides the basis for Knuckles' gameplay. Tails is shown operating his tornado plane and reflecting on Sonic being mistaken for Shadow. He spots Eggman trying to capture Amy below and transforms into a mech to confront him. This is a boss battle, by the way. It flings a boss battle at you before it even tells you how to control Tails, which I find hilarious. The boss fights in this game are pretty meh. Tails defeats Eggman, and Eggman decides to be a super nice guy and just leaves. Tails proceeds into Prison Island to clear a path to Sonic, and Amy follows behind. Amy releases Sonic from his cell, and he races through the harbor, escaping on a rocket. He heads up in the jungle, where he fights Shadow again. Sonic overhears Eggman on Shadow's communicator say that Prison Island is primed to explode, and he runs to escape the island. Sonic, Tails, and Amy fly off in the tornado. Eggman broadcasts around the world to announce he has taken control of the space colony Ark, a massive superweapon in space, and he uses it to destroy half the moon to demonstrate its power, and begins a countdown for another attack, unless the world submits to him. Sonic and team realize Eggman is using Chaos Emeralds to power the Ark, and Tails suggests using his Chaos Emerald to find Eggman, explaining how the emeralds attract each other like magnets. After being unable to locate Eggman using this method, Tails then determines that they must be too far out of range, suggesting outer space. Also, Knuckles appears here, meeting up with the team for the first time. He was exploring some ruined mines in the sewers, I don't know, just roll with it. Knuckles kinda does his own thing in this game.
Do you know the way?
Sonic and Tails meet up with the President, and trace a call from Eggman, which reveals he is on the Ark. You probably could have just guessed that he was up on the space station, but oh well. The team heads to the pyramids with Knuckles, saying he saw Rouge go inside. They make their way through and discover Eggman's hidden base. After defeating a golem, they reach the space colony using a rocket. They land on the colony and learn that it was shut down over 50 years ago and has since been abandoned. They make a plan to destroy the cannon before Eggman can launch another attack. Tails explains how he can use a fake emerald to fuck up the machine. Tails and Amy get captured by Eggman before Sonic has a chance to install the fake emerald, and he has to go back for them. Knuckles finds all the pieces of the Master Emerald and fights Rouge. Knuckles saves her from falling to her death, and the two part on good terms. Sonic makes it back and tries to hand Eggman the fake emerald in order to trick him. Eggman sees through this ploy and traps Sonic in a pod. Now, you see here, Eggman doesn't actually know it's a fake emerald, but he has a suspicion something isn't right, and he manages to get Tails to reveal that the emerald's fake.
Oh, how did you know it wasn't the real one?
Tails!
Because you just told me, Fox Boy.
And I just want to say, well played, Eggman, well played. The evil genius be evil geniusing. I mean, Tails' face just says it all, really.
What the fuck?
Eggman launches Sonic into space and he is presumed to be dead. Of course, he isn't dead. He somehow manages to use Chaos Control with the fake emerald to teleport from danger due to the emerald having the same properties of a real one. Okay, sure. He makes his way back and has a final confrontation with Shadow. Sonic wins, destroys the cannon, and reveals to his team he survived. He strikes a cool pose, which is also an homage to Empire Strikes Back, and the hero story ends. And if that was the end of the game right there, then I would understand all the hate this game receives, but that isn't the end. That's only half, yo. Up next is the dark story, and my personal favorite. As a kid growing up, I always had a preference for playing as the bad guys. I was a huge fan of Darth Vader, so evil characters were to me objectively more interesting and fun to play as. So when I found out Eggman was playable for the first time, and not only playable but had a story that would expand upon his character, I could hardly contain my excitement. The dark story begins with Eggman assaulting the gun base on Prison Island, having learned of a secret weapon within, which his grandfather designed. Eggman wants this weapon, naturally. In fact, he probably sees it as an inheritance or some shit. His weapon turns out to be a cryogenically frozen Shadow, who promises to help the Doctor take over the world as thanks for releasing him. Shadow defeats an enemy walker sent to intercept, and the pair escape after Shadow directs Eggman towards the Ark. Eggman heads to his pyramid base and watches a news report on Shadow stealing a Chaos Emerald. The incident Sonic was blamed for at the beginning of the game. We then relive a flashback with Shadow, in which he and a young girl named Maria are fleeing from someone. The girl locks Shadow in a pod, asks him to promise her something, and jettisons him towards Earth. Shadow returns to the present and reveals he promised her revenge on the planet. Shadow has his first confrontation with Sonic, and after playing a mission as Rouge breaking into Eggman's pyramid and hacking into his systems, we are then on the Ark as Shadow explains to Eggman the Ark contains weapons of mass destruction, one of them being the Eclipse Cannon, capable of destroying planets. Oh look, more inspiration being pulled from Star Wars. Maybe that's why I love Sonic so much. Shadow was another of these weapons designed on the Ark. The cannon needs the Chaos Emeralds to power it. Rouge reveals to the duo having overheard their conversation, and offers them a deal wherein she helps them look for the emeralds. The trio return to Prison Island and scheme to steal 3 emeralds from the prison vault and blow up the island. Amy, having come to the island to free Sonic, spots Shadow and mistakes him for the blue hedgehog. How though, he's black, and this is where Tails and Eggman have their first fight. Rouge locates the emeralds but gets trapped in the vault. She contacts Shadow and he decides to go and rescue her. This is the first real instance of the game showing us he isn't a completely evil character, as he puts his own life in danger of being destroyed along with the island. The argument could be made that he needed the Chaos Emeralds and would have had to go back anyway, with Shadow himself stating this, but the game shows to us Shadow's inner turmoil as the game alternates between images of Maria and Rouge's face, indicating Shadow's moral dilemma. He treks back through the jungle to rescue her, encountering Sonic along the way, and he uses Chaos Control to teleport them to safety. Through a cutscene with Shadow and Maria, it is revealed Shadow's creator, Gerald Robotnik, dedicated his life to the betterment of mankind through science. Eggman makes his threat to the world and circumcises the moon. The Dark Team discovers Tails has the final Chaos Emerald in what's one of the only references to Adventure 1, and they move to intercept. Rouge also reveals via a communicator call that she has been employed to deduce whether or not Shadow is Gerald Robotnik's ultimate life form. Eggman confronts the heroes in the pyramid and releases his golem. However, in a cruel twist of fate, this time, instead of simply destroying the golem, Sonic destroys a restraining bolt and the creature turns on Eggman. This is a fun little way to reuse a boss fight, and it ties in perfectly with Eggman's character, reminding the player that while still a genius, Eggman is also a bumbling buffoon, whose own creations on more than one occasion are the cause of his demise. Rouge tricks Eggman into giving her the Ark's computer password by literally just asking for it, and she learns Shadow isn't the ultimate life form. She moves to collect pieces of the Master Emerald, and the scene plays where Knuckles saves her from the fall. Eggman detects the energy reading of an extra Chaos Emerald, and this is where his knowledge of the fake emerald comes from. Eggman heads to the Ark to confront the heroes and captures Amy. He then has his master play and kills Sonic. Shadow interrupts Rouge preparing to steal the Chaos Emeralds, because she's a jewel thief, and deduces that she is a spy working for the president. She admits to this and reveals she plans to take the Chaos Emeralds as payment for helping them find the Chaos Emeralds. Lol. She also informs Shadow of her findings into Project Shadow and that he isn't in fact the ultimate life form. Eggman calls and orders Shadow to intercept Sonic on his way to the cannon. Shadow demands Rouge leave the emeralds, and she asks if he still believes himself to be Shadow. Shadow declares that even if his memories are manufactured, he is still the person who made a promise to the tragically late Maria, and his only desire is to fulfill that promise. This further humanizes Shadow, showing his undying loyalty to his friend and his motivation to avenge her. After what I feel is the best Shadow level in the game, which I know many people will disagree with, Shadow and Sonic have their final face-off. Okay, now that that's out of the way... Sorry? What? There's another campaign? What the fuck is this shit? You don't understand. Games just didn't do this stuff back then. Multiple characters, including the bad guys, and a hidden final campaign? Oh my lord, my tiny underdeveloped brain could hardly comprehend what it was witnessing without blowing up into a million chunky pieces. Too bad it sucked. The last campaign begins with an alarm blaring throughout the Ark, and Eggman stumbles upon his grandfather's diary. The Ark has begun a collision course to Earth, and a fail-safe put in place by Gerald should the Eclipse cannon be destroyed. A message broadcasts around the world of the late Doctor, announcing 27 minutes until ultimate destruction. The heroes and villains meet in the research center, and Eggman presents his grandfather's diary. As Shadow explained, the Doctor originally was a kind person. However, the government decided they were afraid of whatever Gerald was cooking and sent a task force to the Ark to close down any research and eliminate any staff while the good Doctor was away. Turns out, Maria is Gerald's granddaughter and Eggman's cousin. She is destroyed along with everything else. This drives Gerald insane, and he plots ultimate revenge with Shadow. The new team-up devise a plan to use the Master Emerald to neutralize the energy from the Chaos Emeralds, which should stop the Ark. After playing a short section with each character, barring Shadow, the team reaches the core, which is designed after the Master Emerald Shrine on Angel Island in order to harness the Chaos Emerald's power. Amy finds Shadow and asks for his help. He initially refuses, but something Amy says triggers a repressed memory, in which she realizes that Maria's final wish was for Shadow to help the people of Earth, and she never wanted revenge. I like to think this repression was caused by Shadow's own trauma of losing his best friend. Maria never wanted revenge, but Shadow did. And his broken and grief-stricken mind concocted the fake memory so that Shadow had a reason to take that revenge. This is why I love Shadow as a character. Deep down, all he wants is justice for someone who he deeply cared for, which is a very human way to react. With this new memory unlocked, Shadow finds motivation again, this time to save the Earth's inhabitants rather than destroy them. Shadow races to the core, where the true ultimate life form, the Bio-Lizard, has appeared to prevent the heroes from interfering. Shadow faces the creature alone while the heroes move to retrieve the emeralds. I'm not a fan of this fight. The homing attack is super inconsistent and the angle of the camera makes these orb things difficult to dodge. Knuckles uses the Master Emerald to disable the Chaos Emerald, and the Bio-Lizard uses Chaos Control to vanish. The team soon learns that the lizard is now outside the Ark and has fused with the cannon in order to force it to continue its collision course towards Earth. Sonic and Shadow decide to use Chaos Emeralds together to both go super and go on to face the final hazard. This boss is pretty cool for the spectacle, but lacks much substance. You just fly towards the weak points while dodging attacks. The team discover they can't stop the lizard. That's when Shadow decides to use the Chaos Emeralds to stop the Ark and sacrifice himself for the people of Earth. The Earth's inhabitants celebrate, and the heroes and villains reflect on their journey and Shadow's noble sacrifice. And that ends the story of Sonic Adventure 2. In this man's humble opinion, this is the greatest Sonic story of all time. The ambition they had for this game and the scope of the story at the time was incredible. I mean, look at the competitors. What here can match Sonic Adventure 2 story-wise? Maybe Halo and perhaps Silent Hill 2. Definitely not Metal Gear Solid 2. Don't you try and pretend that shit made any sense. I love this story, mainly thanks to Shadow. I love his character. If I can draw another Star Wars comparison, chop off this hedgehog's limbs and call him Darth, cause he's basically Vader. Both are powerful beings, driven over the edge by the death of a loved one, who choose to take out their grief on those around them. Both of them are tragic. None of this is their fault. Their anguish caused by the machinations of another, and both are redeemed in their final moments, finally letting go of their grief and achieving peace. It is an archetype that shows that even evil characters are capable of humanity, and that spoke to me as a kid. The story isn't perfect, and I'm aware that no small amount of nostalgia heavily influences my opinion, but I still believe it holds today, and Shadow's story can still teach some young kids a lesson about humanity. After you beat the game, you unlock Stage Select and get this cool little rendition of a map that represents the journey the characters make throughout the game, which I think is awesome. Which brings me on to the stages. Initially, I was just going to run through level by level, but then I realized a lot of the shooting and hunting levels are very similar with minimal changes. And the last chapter is just a short and extremely linear section for each character. So I've instead decided to go through the speed stages, since this is a Sonic game. I'll also list my favorite stage for each character, and I'll alternate between Sonic and Shadow stages. First up is City Escape, and wow, what a level. This is what comes to mind for most people when they think of Sonic Adventure 2. A great level that begins with Sonic crashing down from the gun helicopter and using a piece of debris as a makeshift skateboard to literally shoot through the streets. This mimics the beginning of Ice Cap Zone, and it ends with Sonic outrunning a huge gun truck, all while City Escape blasts in the background. This is how you do a first level. A truly iconic level based on the home base of Sonic Team, San Francisco. Radical Highway is Shadow's first level, and another San Francisco themed level, with the Golden Gate Bridge prominently featured, which you can totally grind down. I personally love the aesthetics, and the music for this map really makes it a heart-pounding, adrenaline-fueled blast for me to play every time. All in all, I feel it's a great debut level for Shadow. Flying through the air on rockets and running through the highway gives an exhilarating sense of speed. Metal Harbor is a fantastic stage. This is Sonic's first stage after escaping captivity, and the game does a great job of making it feel like a prison break, with Sonic rushing past guard robots and jets. You get the lightspeed dash ability on this stage, which allows Sonic to speed towards connected rings, and the level has a whole bunch of them spread throughout, which feels so satisfying when you pull them all off. Sonic races up a launching rocket as a set piece, which actually has 2 points to grab onto. I did not know about the second point as a kid. I only discovered this later, which blew my mind, showing that this 24-year-old game still has secrets to show me. Another testament as to why I love it. And the guitar riffs in the music are awesome too. The Sonic and Shadow's jungle levels are next, and they're probably the most similar to each other, so I'll talk about them both. White Jungle is Shadow's. This map is on a timer to make you feel a sense of urgency as the island is set to explode. You aren't really in danger at running out of time though, unless you're exploring. Green Forest is Sonic's version of the map, and as stated, there just isn't much here to differentiate the two maps from each other. I mean, Shadow gets these repel things which propel him forward, but that to me seems the most noteworthy change. And for some reason, Sonic gets 8 minutes on his timer and Shadow gets 10. Like, what's the deal with that? Did someone not think he was fast enough or something?
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
These stages are okay. There's some tight platforming and there's some fun to be had with the homing attack and some cool loops and vines to swing on, but they aren't my favorites. I love the music and the aesthetics, but the level design just doesn't do it for me. I don't think any of the speed stages in this game are bad, but if I were to rank SA2's levels, then the jungle stages would be near the bottom. In Shadow's level it's raining, which I think is a nice touch, but overall I think I prefer Green Forest. Pyramid Cave is my least favorite Sonic stage and probably least favorite speed stage overall in the game. Again, not a bad level, I'm just not a fan of the gimmick where you need to hit the hourglasses to open doors. It also has these sections where you need to stop dead to place these objects into slots, with one of these sections taking egregiously long, which really breaks the flow of the level. You get the bounce ability here, which is fun. There's also E-Series robots about as enemies, which is a great callback to Adventure 1's Gamma. The ghosts strewn throughout the pyramid evoke a serious Sandopolis Zone Act 2 vibe, which is a pretty notorious level amongst Sonic fans, and I can't help but feel this was intentional. At least the music has a good flow. Skyrail is the shadow stage most people groan at whenever the prospect of replaying it arises, due to the rails and wonky camera, and I can understand this, and I partly agree. I find this level slightly lackluster, but not due to the rails. For me, the aesthetics are what really drag it down. It takes place in the same area as Knuckles' Pumpkin Hill, which is my favorite Knuckles level by the way, but in his stage the pumpkins are lit up like jack-o'-lanterns during the night time, which ties in with the level's Halloween theme. In Shadow's version it's daytime, and they don't emit any light, which just makes the stage feel really bland for me. Overall though, I feel the level is very well designed, the camera just brings it down a little. Definitely the most difficult speed stage to A rank, but I like to view it as a challenge. As always, the music for this map is a banger. Another thing I'd like to point out is the premise for this level is Shadow is supposed to intercept Tails, but he doesn't reach him, and the heroes make their way to Eggman's pyramid anyway, so from a story perspective, this level feels kinda pointless to me. Same goes for Rouge's kart level for the same reasons. Many people dislike Crazy Gadget, but I don't. You're approaching the end of the game, and the stage's difficulty reflects this. It's supposed to be hard, and I loved trying to improve on this level as a kid, though I will admit I did struggle to solve the gravity puzzle at the end. I forgot you could bounce, which is where I think most people's grievances with this stage originate. But once you solve it, it doesn't pose much of a problem on repeat playthroughs. The music pairs beautifully with the space aesthetic, same goes for all the space maps. And it has another callback enemy in the form of these Chaos creatures, Chaos being the first and final boss of Adventure 1, who I love. We've reached Final Chase and Shadow's final stage, also my favorite as I previously stated. It has the gorgeous space aesthetic with the earth looming below. It's impossible not to feel a sense of awe at grinding at high speeds across this breathtaking vista. The level is extremely well thought out, which I feel strikes the perfect balance between grinding and running, and I love the gimmick. Navigating these gravity tubes that pull you in are a blast to me. Overall, I just feel this stage effortlessly combines spectacle and substance, resulting in an absolute masterwork of a level. The difficulty is there, and you can find the ancient light upgrade off the beaten path. This, to me, really felt like an endgame upgrade. You find these shrines throughout the game you could never interact with, but now you can, and they open up new paths throughout the levels. This amazed me as a kid, offering extra incentives to go back through the game. Same goes with nearly all the abilities, allowing you to go back and interact with stages to find secrets and hidden routes. Wow, Sonic Adventure 2 is great. Another cool little detail I'd like to point out is how the names of the ending stages reflect the character's objective. Final Rush signifying Sonic's mad dash to make it to the Eclipse Cannon in time, before it fires, with Final Chase signaling that Shadow is hot on Sonic's heels, hunting him down. Neat. Which brings me on to Sonic's Final Rush. Before I begin though, I just wanted to note that while going through the stage list, I noticed for the first time that Shadow actually has 2 less levels than Sonic. Hey yo, Sega, why you do my boy dirty like this? Final Rush is another great level for Sonic, which rivals Shadow's final stage in scope and in difficulty. You really feel the speed on this level, and the whole thing is just one huge set piece that you play through. Overall though, Shadow's version beats it out for me due to the gimmick not being as fun. You just homing attack these rails, but I found it inconsistent and I had a few unfair deaths because of it. Not enough to drag down the rest of the stage though. A fitting final mission for Sonic, and tied with City Escape for my favorite Sonic map. And those are the speed stages. Overall, it's an absolutely stacked selection with some absolute god tier levels originating from this all-time classic. Now I'm going to quickly mention my favorite stages for the other characters. For Knuckles, as I mentioned, is Pumpkin Hill. I just love the vibe of this level, and flying down from the very top is a thrill. For Rouge, I need to go with Mad Space. It takes place in space again, with small planets with their own orbits, which helps you glide longer. I just think it's really cool. For Eggman, I'm going to pick Cosmic Wall, which...
Oh look, another space.
Hey! Shut the fuck up, it's my video. Which... yes, it's a space level.
I like space.
What makes this level for me is the low gravity gimmick that lets you jump and hover higher, and this makes the mech gameplay infinitely more fun. It has a couple auto-scrolling sections which prevent you from finishing any faster, and a lot of people don't like this, but it never bothered me as I never tried to go too fast through the mech stages anyway. And finally, my favorite stage for Tails is... none of them. I don't like the Tails missions.
Not even the space stage?
Not even the space stage. They all just feel the same to me, with hardly any gimmicks to make levels feel distinct. His space level doesn't even get low gravity, damn you.
You have to pick one.
Okay, fine. I like the kart level.
You like the kart level.
I like the kart level. I'm approaching the end of the video, and I want to quickly mention Battle. Battle is a re-release of Sonic Adventure 2 and a port for the GameCube. Fun fact, this was Sonic's debut on a Nintendo console after the Dreamcast died. I have more experience with the Battle version of the game, but I wanted to stay true to the original, so I just covered Adventure 2. Battle came with the usual graphical upgrade and updated character models, and made some small gameplay tweaks, like adding a marker to the hunting sections to let you know you were right on top of an emerald. The coolest thing added, I think, was the 2-player battle mode. In it, you could play as new characters including Metal Sonic and Amy, which was rad at the time. Downloadable content wasn't a thing yet, so new characters in an old game was a rare occurrence. This is the definitive and superior version of Sonic Adventure 2. Sonic Adventure 2 is my favorite 3D Sonic, the last game to use the adventure formula. I said the last game to use the adventure formula really is an all-time classic for me. After finishing the story, there's so much more for you to do. Each stage can be replayed a variety of times, with different mission parameters ranging from collecting rings to finding lost Chow, and you have a whole bunch of secrets and hidden paths to find throughout the levels. You can hunt down emblems and chase the A ranks. This game just has so much content, you rarely see anything this ambitious these days. After the birth of the Devil Spawn, Sonic moved away from the adventure style of play and switched to the boost gameplay, which he still uses today. While fun and I enjoy it, I just feel it's the inferior style. Sonic used to be about earning your speed. It felt rewarding. Now you just press a button and Sonic goes max speed, which I find infinitely less engaging. But at the end of it all, I'm just glad the Blue Hedgehog is still around. His games aren't always great, with many people believing his best days are behind him, but I still love Sonic for the memories. I was lucky enough to see Sonic at his peak, and I'll never forget it. And I'll remain hopeful that maybe one day, my dream will come true and we'll finally see a Sonic Adventure 3. Oh, and there's also a Chow raising sim. I didn't engage with this. Hi there, I want to thank you, yes you, for making it to the end of the video. I really hope you enjoyed watching it as much as I enjoyed making it. I was inspired to make this after watching Sonic 3. They did a really great job with it. It's surprisingly faithful, and I highly recommend it if you haven't already seen it. Jim Carrey is great. I thought the way they represented Shadow was very good. Felt very believable, and Keanu Reeves did a fantastic job, so I am very pleased with it. This is the first time I've ever done something like this, and I'm really pleased with how it turned out, so please let me know what you thought of it in the comments. Let me know what Sonic means to you. I'd love to know, and I'd love to do more if this video is well received, so please like it if you liked it, maybe share it, I'd appreciate it. And I think I'm finished here, so thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.